operation.
Never was going to...
future. There are no people. There are no people in the future. No people at all. There are no people in the future. Where did all my people go? There are no people in the future. Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are
Hope you are hearing me. It has been a morning of little work gremlins and tech gremlins kind of showing themselves this morning. I apologize for the late start. It is Friday, April 1st. I was not trying to pull an April Fool's Day. I swear to God, not happening. But it is Friday, April Fools, April 1st, 2022. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Friday Politics Roundup. This is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. Each week we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. You can help support the show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Just head on over to patreon.com/rcpress. You can also help out the show by heading over to the YouTube page, our YouTube channel, if you're not there already, that is. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for the show, and hit that notification bell so you know every time we go live. On today's show, the original plan for the show kind of got a little derailed from a few things. I won't go into details as to all this stuff. But anyways, we're going to look at, we'll do a little bit of a condensed version of what I wanted to do today. But good stuff. Amazon workers' bid to unionize is looking pretty good. At the end of yesterday's vote count at Amazon's Staten Island facility, the yes votes for the union stood at 57%, according to Reuters. Now, vote counting continues today, but union organizers are feeling pretty good, a little cautiously optimistic. You don't want to kind of, count your chickens before you're hatched or anything like this, but they are definitely encouraged, at least, by the day one vote count. Meanwhile, new information shows that Amazon spent $4.3 million in their anti-union campaign just this past year. So, costs are going up because of inflation? It's not because of, corporations spending millions of dollars on frivolous lawsuits in order to keep their workers down, right? Right? I don't know. And Florida Governor DeSantis signed the Don't Say Gay bill this week, and the right wing is doubling down on their anti-gay and anti-trans culture war. Look for more of that coming to a school board and an election near you. And Oklahoma's abortion ban sets its sights on completely gutting Roe v. Wade. We saw what happened when this Supreme Court allowed Texas to go ahead with its kind of mercenary anti-Roe, anti-abortion bill. That just opened the floodgates now, and now it's the rush from these freaking Republican-dominated states to basically see who can go more extreme more quickly. And Oklahoma is definitely kind of quickly out the gates, looking to gut Roe v. Wade as a whole. It's insane. A little bit closer to home, county judge orders 5 Westchester area school district Democratic board members to be removed. Kick them off. Why? Well, because they supported a policy to keep the district's masking policy in place. That's right. The case calling for the removal of the board member stems from a lawsuit filed by Beth and Rosica. She's the executive director of the right-wing PAC Back to School PA, and she is fresh off her landslide defeat in her bid to become Westchester's mayor. Here we go, folks. Here we go. They're already using the courts as a way of getting their way and circumventing democratic elections. How about that? Speaking of school boards subverting the future of democracy, here in the Pennridge School District, school board basically took its Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, the community committee that they formed after they tabled their last DEI initiative. What do? They mothballed it. Put it on hiatus. That's what we get when we get QAnon people dominating our school boards. Boy. And the big story that I'll spend a little bit of time on today is it seems to be it's an inflection point for Pennsylvania's labor movement. There was a newly appointed president of the PA AFL-CIO this week, and it turns out he's got some skeletons in his closet. And Rick Smith, yes, Rick Smith of the Rick Smith Show, is basically taking out the laundry. He's saying there is no way that we should have a labor leader at the top of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO who has a history of abusive behavior toward women. What say you? Yep, it's about time we do some public accounting here. It is one of those moments. Which side are you on, Pennsylvania labor movement? Which side are you on? And today's last call, the dungeon run. Yes, the dungeon run. My little dungeon run. The dungeon run, their Heroes of Bingle D&D campaign came to a close this week. You've heard me talk about it on the show before. I gotta say, a super shout out and thanks goes to the show creators and the actors for that show, or the player characters for that show. Jeff Kanata was the DM and the kind of mastermind behind the campaign. On a very personal note, it really got me through just a kind of a really rough transition back in the fall. And it kind of, over time, really provided a little ray of hope and joy. At the center of their campaign was empathy. And they closed out every single show with the humankind be both. It was a model of how we can tell stories, collaborative stories, with care at the core. Anyways, I'll say a little bit more about that. Yep, well, if you missed it last night, you're not going to want to miss it anymore. For more PA Progressive Talk, tune into the Rick Smith Show's live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern on his YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you get your streams. Make sure you subscribe to his podcast and check out where all his shows are at thericksmithshow.com for the latest across all his platforms. My guess is that his weekend call-in show at WBAI is going to be pretty active after just what went down last night. And yes, Season 2 of the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast is now flooding your streams. You can find it on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. The amazing PA women stirring the political cauldron behind this podcast rock the house. And they know where the bodies are buried. Make sure to follow them on Twitter at The Night Caucus. That's at The Night Caucus on Twitter. And attention all you gamers out there, The Game In is a Quakertown-based black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show, and they've got everything for retro N64s, the latest consoles, video games for all platforms, and loads of collectibles, action figures, and Funko Pops. Like literally an entire wall, or it might even be 2 walls now, of Funko Pops. And the kids, they get all A's on their report card, they get a discount. Boom! Check them out on their Facebook page and follow them on Twitter at The Game In. That's with 2 N's. That's at The Game In. If you got a question about a game, look for something hard to get, just shoot them a message or drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. And a special shout out goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. And check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at Song a Day Man. That's with 2 N's at Song a Day Man on Twitter. Well, I'll tell you, we've got quite a lineup coming up on Out to Coop Live the next few weeks. This Monday, April 4th, we'll have David Backer on the show. David's got a great piece out. He's a professor down at Westchester University in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies, and he's got a new piece that came out in Dissent magazine called Toxic Finance. And it's looking at basically starting from that premise, like you look at what had happened during COVID, right? What it exposed in terms of our schools, the crumbling infrastructure of our schools. But he takes us a step further by checking into the toxicity in the way that we finance school improvements, right? And of course, it's rotten to the core. So we're going to talk about his article and talk about some of the work that is going on to combat that. So David Backer is going to be on. David Backer is going to be on Monday, April 4th. And then a week later, we've got Shanna Danielson will be back on the show, digging into what's happening in education and, a whole bunch of politics across the state. So she'll be on the 11th. And then I'm going to stop there. We've got a couple really good shows coming up toward the end of the month, which I am so freaking stoked about. But I'll save that for another time. I don't want to spill all my beans yet. Want to remind you, look, if you want a progressive future, we need progressive media. Support Pull No Punches homegrown progressive media today by becoming a patron of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/rcpress. Become a patron for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement the media. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month by going to patreon.com/rcpress. And, I got to say, I'll say this one more thing, just on the kind of patron pitch here. There's a reason. And when we talk about what went down at the Rick Smith show last night, you'll kind of get an inkling of this. But I'll tell you, there's a reason why when I started Raging Chicken, I knew that, there's a few things that I did that were consequential decisions in some ways. And what I mean by that is that, the biggest barrier to doing something like this, three biggest barriers, right? It's just like anything else, right? Time, labor, and money. And unlike the right wing, the left, or the broad-based progressive left, does not have, angel billionaires that are dropping huge sums of money in our back pocket, right, to help support our operating costs and all this, or to provide a salary. So most of us who do this are doing it on the side, doing it as a second job, doing it as just like I am. And shows that are attempting to go out and succeed, right, and kind of want to make sure to dig down and kind of serve a movement, are always looking for sources of funding. Now, when we moved into the podcast, even when we were first doing primarily kind of writing at Raging Chicken Press, I made a decision not to reach out to major organizations for support. And I kept on hearing from people, again, people who are well-meaning, people who were just trying to help, that I should be reaching out to a bunch of these organizations. And there was just this nagging pit in my stomach that I did not want to be in a situation in which somebody could threaten the livelihood of this show, right? Because I said something that they didn't like. I just could not get that. Now, the problem with that, of course, is it puts a real cap on your reach, right? Because if you're trying to self-fund, or you're trying to kind of fund from members and patrons, right, it means that you can only go as far as your funding is going to take you. You can only go as far as the community is willing to support the work, right? Now, I'm lucky that I work at a place, I have a union job, right? I have a good place. I have a lot of flexibility in my time. I work a lot, but I have enough flexibility in my time that I can schedule stuff in like this. Right, so I've chosen to, focus on this project. And because I have a union position and a contract and stuff, I'm able to put some of my money towards this project. Right, but most of what supports the show, most of what keeps us on its air, most of what has enabled me to kind of expand into this podcast arena, bring on kind of guests on the Out the Coop Live on Monday nights, and then continue to reach out to folks and looking for ways I could contribute to the community. Comes from people like you, right? The patrons of our show, the people that have gone on to patreon.com/rcpress, and they supported us with as little as $5 a month, right? We've had a few people who've come on, they've supported us for a while at $50 a month. There's some other people who've supported us at $25 a month, right? But that's really the lifeblood. Without that, this would be an occasional thing. But instead, we do it on a fairly regular basis, which is pretty amazing. But there's a cap on it. And, if I really wanted to kind of basically quit my job and do this full time, I wouldn't be able to fund it on my own. I'd have to find somebody to kind of invest in this. And frankly, there's only a limited number of pots you can go to that are out there that have the money to fund something like this. Now, I've learned over the years that that always comes with strings attached. And that's the compromise I wasn't willing to make. So here I am. So anyways, I didn't mean to go into that as much at this point, but here I am. So anyways, big news today when it comes to Amazon. The Amazon workers look like I don't want to jinx anything here. Let's be clear. Let's not get ahead of myself. But last night, when the voting concluded, the tally was at 1,742, right? 1,742 votes for the union, and only 1,300. Wait, let's make sure I'm looking to the right one. Yep, only 1,300 against. right? And this is being overseen by the NLRB. Now, you remember what happened in this, the original kind of attempt to unionize and move forward here. There was all sorts of, as you'd expect, Amazon committed all sorts of kind of unfair labor practices, worker intimidation. They fired workers, which is against the law for the union activity. But here they go, right? Now, Chris Smalls, who is one of the lead organizers for this, formed the Amazon Labor Union, right? It's an independent union at that Staten Island facility. This would be huge, right? A victory, as it says in Reuters, a victory for organized labor at the second largest U.S. private employer would be historic, right? Be the first one in the history of the United States to unionize an Amazon shop. So this would be pretty amazing. So follow that up. Follow it up. Now, in the flip side of that, you remember that there was the organizing drive down in Alabama. In that case, it didn't go as well. 53% of Amazon workers in the Alabama site voted against unions, against unionization. It's still not a final outcome, but so it's a mixed bag. But the Staten Island one, a huge facility, would be amazing. I believe there's like 5,000 workers at that site. So we shall see. So that is a huge, huge kind of victory for the labor movement. And it shows what happens, right? It shows you what happens when workers are organizing. They're willing to be militant. They're willing to kind of not compromise on their demands. They're willing to build solidarity in their workplaces, right, across all sorts of differences and conflicts, right, and come together to, and just say no to those kind of working conditions that they're faced with. And they're going to say yes to kind of a democratically elected union, which will then be able to bargain for wages, hours, and conditions. So kudos to those folks, and Amazon's fingers crossed that that nearly 60% margin holds throughout the day today. So that's some good news. Amazon, according to a recent article in HuffPost, Amazon has, for their part, decided that they would spend about $4.3 million in an effort to beat back unions, right? This was their anti-union campaign. This is according with new filings with the U.S. Department of Labor, finding out that, yes, Amazon indeed spent a good $4.3 million to defeat the union. And we'll see where that gets us. This is a little bit from the HuffPost article. The disclosures from Amazon offer a glimpse into how far the online retailer is willing to go to stay union-free. Many employers hire anti-union consultants to hold meetings with workers and dissuade them from unionizing, but none seem to match the scale or price tag of Amazon's efforts. Over the course of just 1 year in its sprawling warehouses, workers at Amazon's Bessemer, Alabama fulfillment center were required to attend frequent meetings where they heard anti-union talking points from consultants at the run-up to a union election early last year. Workers ultimately voted against joining, which we just talked about, but federal officials ended up ordering a new election after Amazon had broken the law, which is what just happened. The company also deployed consultants at a warehouse in Staten Island, New York, last year, where workers began to organize a drive towards an upstart Amazon labor union, that independent union. Workers voted in a union election at that facility in recent days, and the results can be known as early as today. Right? It goes on. Of course, Amazon did not respond to comments. What's interesting, the Amazon consultants, when they submitted their filings, it turns out that they were getting just about $3,200 a day for their work. $3,200 a day. So this is the kind of thing where, we need to be kind of thinking about where the profits are going right now, where the money is going right now. Last week on the show, we talked about this last week on the show. This is why the kind of Bernie Sanders, Ed Markey and Jamal Bowman introduced legislation for a windfall profits tax, right? In other words, it's like, these companies are making money hand over fist. The profits are skyrocketing, right? And meanwhile, we're experiencing all these effects of inflation, right? And so it's interesting, right? record profits for something like Amazon, record profits for the oil and gas industry, record profits for corporation after corporation that is taking the lion's share of the increase in the GDP since 2008, right? And they're scooping up all the profit, right? And forcing us to pay more so they can continue increasing their profits. These are companies who are not hurting. When you hear this stuff, oh, if the prices go up, they're going to pass it on. They're going to pass it on to consumers, right? And they're going to pass it on to consumers not because they need to, but because they can. Because they want to continue their just insane accumulation of capital and money. And that's what's got to stop. Right? So you got on the one hand, you got to, there's like, look, there's a two-pronged thing that's got to go on here. On the one hand, right, we've got to kind of like get behind the kind of organizing that we see happening at Amazon's warehouses, right? If this goes through, this is going to be huge. At the Starbucks unions, right? Workers beginning to organize and basically take control over their workplaces. Not somebody flying in from some kind of office in Washington, D.C. to come and organize. No, but workers themselves organizing their unions. And then on the other hand, we need to start cutting off the kind of unfettered accumulation of wealth from these corporations, where that windfall profit tax starts to chip away at that a little bit. Because what happens for the most of us were told, like, there's no money. And it is such a load of crap. It's such a load of crap. So here we are. Oh my God. Congratulations. Hopefully we'll be going out this evening to the Amazon workers who are organizing. Man, I hope so. I hope they win this. Amazon Labor Union. And so there's the good news for the day, I guess. The bad news is that the right wing is basically going all in on the culture war. And so now we know after they kind of battle tested their kind of anti-gay conspiracy theories, their critical race theory nonsense, their anti-masking culture wars, after they kind of, basically market tested that during the school board elections for this past year, now they're kind of doubling down on that and everything they can do. So we see Florida Governor DeSantis as he kind of gears up for a presidential run in 2024, signs the don't say gay bill, right? Which is insane, right? So, I'll get to that in a second. Besides the don't say gay bill. Right, and championing this as protecting our children, right? Think about what the kind of the unsaid is in that, right? Because what's happening here too as well, it's not just that you have this kind of like just don't say gay bill, right? You're no longer able to talk about, right? Can you imagine this? There's basically says in this bill, if you're between kindergarten and third grade, teachers are not allowed to basically discuss same-sex couples. It can't even be part of the discussion. So what do you do if you have a kid whose both parents are women or both parents are men? Think about that kid. How are you protecting that kid? You're not protecting that kid. You're teaching them to be ashamed, and that is disgusting. That should never be part of what we do in our public education system. The second thing it does, there was a great discussion on this in the majority report earlier on this week. Great discussion on this. The long history of the right wing trotting out, we're doing it for the children, the protection of the children, as a way of defending white supremacist, patriarchal capitalism in the post-World War II era. And what it does, and this is why, this is where it dovetails with everything about these QAnon conspiracies. The assumption is, and this is, you hear right-wing politicians say this out loud, that the reason why a teacher would would include things in their classrooms that would include, I don't know, a story about a family that has 2 moms or 2 dads. The reason why they're doing that is this is what it's crazy. They're saying that they're grooming the kids for abuse. I literally had to not throw up a little bit in my mouth right. I had to force myself to keep it down because that's how much it disgusts me. What these people are doing. The absolute warpedness of this, the backwards of the backsliding that we are willing to put up with is incredible. The Republican Party is the party of destruction. It is the party of white supremacist patriarchal capitalism. I hate to have to say it, but there it is. There it is. And they will use religion. They will use conspiracy theories. They will lie. They will cheat. They will steal. They do not care. Pointing out these people's hypocrisy doesn't matter because they don't care. They have no shame. Now, there might have been a time when you knew a Republican Party that was different than that, or at least some Republicans who do that. But now the base of the Republican Party is that. I wasn't thinking about talking about this today, but if you could look at some of the polling on this, about the percentages of Republicans that are polled who believe things like the election was stolen, right? That name the conspiracy that's coming out of the QAnon stuff. It keeps on creeping up year after year. More and more of the Republican base, your average everyday Republican, is in bed with the extremist conspiracists. And there you go. You need more evidence of that? All right, let's go to Oklahoma, shall we? Yeah, Oklahoma. Little abortion ban. Here, this is, I was going to read you a little bit of this from the PBS NewsHour. So as the fate of Roe v. Wade hangs in the balance in the Supreme Court, many states are moving ahead with their own restrictions on abortion. Oklahoma State House, this is from yesterday, Oklahoma State House voted 78-19 to pass a near-complete ban on abortions in mid-March. In mid-March. Legislation that would go further than this Texas 6 weeks ban on which it was modeled. Under the Oklahoma bill, abortions would be banned immediately after conception unless it met one of 2 exceptions. One, to save the life of a pregnant woman in medical emergency, or the result of rape, sexual assault, or incest that has been reported to law enforcement. The bill, which abortion rights advocates call the strictest anti-abortion bill in the country, if passed, is now headed to the state Senate next week for a vote. What do you think is going to happen when this gets challenged? Well, I should say this too. With Republicans holding more than 80% of the state House and Senate seats in Oklahoma, they are taking advantage of the largest supermajority in state history to push restrictions that appeal to their passionate partisan voter base, which is the majority of those Republicans in that party. Idaho just did the same thing, right? So now these are going to move forward, right? This will end up in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has already told us what it's going to do. That Texas one was the case. Oh yeah, look, as long as you just have a vigilante, usually have, individual citizen vigilantes going out and going after people who have abortions and suing them for $10,000 a pop, that's fine. Yeah, we can strip away your constitutional rights for that. Sure, no problem. As long as it's vigilantes doing it. State can't do it. Vigilantes, yes, sure, no problem. And now Oklahoma, Idaho, Oklahoma. This is what's coming. It's already here. What do you mean what's coming? It's crazy. So that's what we got, right? That's what we got in Oklahoma. This is what we're facing. You know, I mean, this is. I have to say the one thing I'm thrilled about right now is that I am getting almost daily messages, calls, knocks for people who are looking to sign petitions to run, to organize stuff, to kind of come out and do door knocking. And in the entire, like, you know, I've lived in Pennsylvania since 2002. I've lived in Bucks County since 2008. And since I've been in Bucks County, only once has anybody ever asked me or knocked on my door to sign a petition or anything for a campaign. Democrats. Republicans have, not Democrats. That is changing. It's a tough haul ahead. But that is, I mean, if we have to look for a silver lining, that's it. My people are organizing. So we'll say more about that. So 2 more things I want to touch on before I take a little break, and then we'll come back. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened on the Rick Smith show last night, what's going on in Pennsylvania labor movement. But first, a couple things that are happening here, and then I want to kind of like let you know about a new project that I've got going on. So down in Westchester, there were 5 Westchester area school district Democratic board members who are being ordered removed from the school board because basically they voted to keep the masking order in place. So now, just so I don't get this, and this is again right-wing big money coming and do this. So I'll read this for you. This is coming from the Times of Chester County, written by Mike Began. So it says, a Chester County judge moved Tuesday to remove 5 members of the Westchester Area School District Board of Education on what he termed a procedural issue, saying that neither the school board members or school district responded in a timely manner to a petition seeking the removal. Now, this is really important. It's great. Right? Anyways, the Court of Common Pleas Judge William Mahone, I'm sorry, that shares part of my name, ordered the removal of Sue Tiernan, Joyce Chester, Kate Shaw, Karen Herman, and Daryl Durnall, based upon a removal petition brought by Beth and Rosica in February over the district's mask policies. Right? Who's Beth Ann Rosica? You're about to find out. Now, all 5 that were being asked to remove are Democrats. Rosica, a Republican, just lost a bid for mayor of Westchester last year. Similar petitions have been filed in other Chester County school districts, including Downingtown and Coatesville. Rosica is also the executive director of Back to School PA, a political action committee funded by Bucks County venture capitalist, yeah, that's right, you guessed it, Paul Martino. Back to School has been the driving fights against school districts using the fictional issue of critical race theory, a college graduate level topic related to structural and ongoing racism not taught in the county's K-12 public schools, and masking policies. The Westchester Area School District ended its mask mandate earlier this month, as did most schools in the region as COVID-19 case numbers dropped, seemingly making the primary issue the driving recall for the recall petition, whatever. So signed by 10 residents in the district on moot issue. Mahone did not rule on the merits of the petition based on this provision, but said that the district's and board members' lack of response forced the decision. It's expected to be appealed. Now, I'm looking for this one part. I thought I had it highlighted here, but it's not here. Well, I'll just say this. So, had to do with this kind of procedural stuff. There were some mitigating circumstances in there, which basically they would have had to like reply in an impossible timeline, right? And it was kind of set up as a way to do this. So it's like, here you go. They're getting removed because they wanted to keep your kids safe. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. And then in Pennridge School District, the Pennridge School Board put its Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee on hiatus. You remember, we've been talking about what's happened in Pennridge for quite some time now. And all those folks who were there to really try to do good for our kids and basically kind of making sure we've got a good DEI initiative here in our schools, we're saying that, look, Joan Cullen and the school board from the Pennridge School Board was basically just delaying stuff, drawing it out so they can get rid of it. And here you go. For all you naysayers out there, I said, no, they're not doing that. They're just trying. No, here you go. This is what they've been working for. They've been working for creating a context, creating a premise that they could use to say they need to put it on hiatus. And there we go. This is what happens when we elect right-wing extremists to our school boards. So I don't know. So I want to say one thing here. I've been thinking about this for a long time, right? I've been thinking about this for different ways that we can help here at Raging Chicken. And one of the things that we know, right, for if you've never heard us talk about some of the failures of our political infrastructure, one of the things that we have been looking for is like, oh, well, how do we actually build power from the ground up? Right? How do we find sources of support and funding to ensure that we get the best candidates that are elected? How do we invest in our, say, progressive or even just basic organizational infrastructure? How do we make sure that we're constantly not having to beg at the feet of outsider Democratic consultants for support for our work? How do we ensure that we get to control the messaging? That it's time to stop just playing nice and pretend that we're not in a battle for the future of multiracial democracy in our county and in our country. Right now, Bucks County is at the center of this fight. It's not the only center. I shouldn't say the center. It is a center. It is a critical place in this fight. Why? Because it's a critical district where we have an increasingly kind of like turning blue county and an uptick in extremism like we're not seeing other places across the state or even the country in some places. Remember, Pennsylvania sent the second largest number of people to the January 6th insurrection. That Stop the Steal rally, right, was funded, or at least getting people there from Pennsylvania, was funded by some millionaires and billionaires right in Bucks County. Right? And we just saw what just happened, right? We just saw what just happened with when people try to draw attention to this. When people are basically saying like Ashley Ahas, right, who's running for representative, running for Congress in the PA's 1st district against Fitzpatrick, when she points out the fact that a Bucks County millionaire, whatever it is, funded buses to go to the Stop the Steal rally, what does he do? He sues her. It's called a slap suit. Cyril Michaleko had a great piece on this past week. It's you file a frivolous lawsuit, and because you have all this money and your opposition does not, you create a kind of culture of fear. And you force the other side to just kind of respond to the nonsense because he got his feelings hurt. And frankly, there's not something like this on the other side. And I'm like, we need to do something. So I'll put the link for this in today's show notes. You're going to see more about this. I'm not show notes. I'm going to put this in the chat right now. And what this basically is, so I started up this thing. You can see this. It's on this side. Nope. I can't get my finger to go right. I can never do that. That way. Over there. Time to end extremism with school boards. So I started up this Raging Chicken Community Fund. Right? Because it's time to reclaim our school boards from the extremists. And I'm going to be reaching out to folks. I'm going to say, you can help support this. You can contribute to this fund. Right? And I'll tell you, this is right from the facts on the page, and I'll tell you what it is. What happens to the money? If you donate to the Raging Chicken Community Fund, right, this is what's going to happen with that money. One, it's going to help fund social media campaigns to support candidates that we deserve for school boards in Bucks County, PA, and across the Commonwealth. One. Two, it will fund social media and traditional media campaigns to expose the toxic agendas of school board candidates funded and supported by the extreme right wing. Three, it will provide organizational support for grassroots and progressive organizing. And four, it'll help support Raging Chicken's podcast and media work to spotlight and report on critical issues facing Bucks County and the Pennsylvania region. What I would love to be able to do on this space is to make sure that we are constantly bringing people on from the school boards. We want to be able to kind of start saying, we're gonna go, look, you've got this right-wing money, this right-wing dark money that's coming in. You know what? We should be having people, we should be able to find money for people, not just having every people do this on a voluntary basis, but we should support research into tracking this kind of crazy extremist money flooding our school boards. We've had amazing people doing incredible work in uncovering this stuff. But you know what? We're all doing it fitting in between making dinner, dropping our kids off at school. We need to basically say we need to value this work and we need to support it. Most of the people who have been organizing around these school boards have done amazing organizational work, but guess what? Nobody had in-depth training on how to do this and best practices. Nobody had organization institutes and things like this to be supportive. Nope. And what happened when a lot of these candidates were kind of going forward, and then you got the kind of outside Democratic consultants fly in? They come in with advice that has nothing to do with the struggle that is happening on the ground. Because we have failed in this county to build an organization from the ground up. So, what do we need to do? We need to invest in organizing. Invest in the deep canvassing. And you know what? Not just when we have an election coming up, but nonstop. We need to build out our infrastructure. And we're going to hope that this is going to be a small contribution in that direction. We have these independent media projects that are kind of going on throughout Bucks County, right? And because of the way that our lives are structured, and because we do not have like any kind of really meaningful infrastructure built up that allows us to plug into this stuff, we're all doing it on our own. So, what would it look like to start bringing people together and asking how together that we can support each other's work? That's the kind of thing that this fund can invest in. We can be a bit of a tip of a spear, right? And I'm not locked into Democratic Party politics. Raging Chicken is an independent thing. This is what I was saying before. They can hate me all they want. But what I know, my kids, I've seen what my kids' lives have been put on the line because of what's happened in the school district. No more. No more. So we're going to look ahead for that. We're going to be kind of pushing this out this week, the Raging Chicken Community Fund. We're going to see what we can do. All right, so in the meantime, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. You can help support this show by heading on over to patreon.com/rcpress. You can do that right now, actually. You can also help out the show by, heading over to our YouTube page if you're not all there already. Make sure you like the show, share it out, subscribe to this channel, right, and support the work that we do. Tweet it out. Thanks to my Twitter warriors that are out there who are always kind of like boosting the signal of this show, right? You can help this show in a way, get the word out and bring, got to bring some sanity back, everybody. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. We're going to be right back. We're going to talk about what's happening with the PA labor movement right after this quick break. Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Here we are once again on our Friday Politics Roundup. So today I'm devoting the second part of the show just to talk a little bit about what went down last night and what will continue to go down here. The Pennsylvania AFL-CIO, right, was the AFL-CIO, American Federation, Congress of Industrial Organizations, right? They are the kind of main overarching labor body, right? They are they are not a union themselves, right? They are a federation of unions, right? The AFL-CIO is very often the one that is looked forward to when you're kind of saying you're representing organized labor. It is the organization of organizations, right? And every state has its own federation, right? So Pennsylvania AFL-CIO is, based in Harrisburg, and now that's kind of connected to, has unions such as AFT, is unions such as the building trades, as unions such as the steel workers, as unions such as the AFSCME workers, right? So, it's a fairly big association. Well, their longtime president, Rick Bloomingdale, retired. And so they had to elect a new president of the AFL-CIO, right? And this is the person who's kind of out there in front. And they elected a person by the name of Frank Snyder, okay, who had been the vice president for a long time. So what happened after he was elected, right? He was elected on here. Rick Smith, the Rick Smith Show, broke his silence on an issue that has been in the background. It is a not so secret about some of the history of this person who is now the president of the PA AFL-CIO for now. So Rick took to Twitter, and I'm going to read some of his tweets for you so you kind of understand it, right? And you should really check out his show from last night. All right, I have the link in today's show notes here. I'm just going to put it in the from 3:31:22. It's his opening monologue. That's the link to Twitter. You can also get it on YouTube. If that doesn't work, I'll put in the YouTube link too as well. So anyways, so this is what he says. Rick says, "Today has been a long day of listening to the stories of women who have been abused by newly minted PA AFL-CIO President Frank Snyder. I am regretting not speaking out sooner. It is time for labor to live its values." Next tweet. "I now see what it is like to come out against a man in a powerful position of an esteemed institution and the lengths people will go to protect him. I expect a cease and desist letter soon and have had our show's funding threatened for telling the truth. I cannot imagine what it is like for a woman who desperately needs her moderately well-paying job and good benefits and what she is willing to put up with. Understand the PA AFL-CIO has two contracts that divide men's and women's work and pay accordingly. This must not stand." He also writes out, "Union women of PA unite. If you've been mistreated or harassed by the newly elected president of the PA AFL-CIO, now is the time to step forward and be heard. You will be believed, and we are here to demand the horrible ways of the past change now. This time it will be different." Another tweet. "As I am talking to women who have worked for and around the PA AFL-CIO under newly elected President Frank Snyder, it is clear the use of confidentiality agreements are a major obstacle to women telling their stories. As a labor movement, we should demand an end to such tools of abuse." Another one. "To all the PA labor leaders still in Pittsburgh area at the PA AFL-CIO convention," that's where he just got elected, that's where the convention is, "you still have time to reverse a terrible choice for president before the gavel falls. History is watching. Women deserve a representative worth of their respect and admiration, not one that abuses. He says another one. Pennsylvania just set the labor movement back a generation. How can you attract women to the labor movement when the PA AFL-CIO is now being led by someone with a history of misogyny and abusive treatment of workers? Workers can do better. Another one. Since coming out against the PA labor delegation electing Frank Snyder president of the PA AFL-CIO, my email and DMs have been slammed with stories of what a horrible leader he has been, and to many stories of abuse and harassment of women. This is not a good day for American labor. That went off like a bomb in labor circles. And you know how it went off like a bomb? Because all the folks in the labor movement aren't commenting, aren't retweeting, aren't even arguing against them in public, because they know. The leadership knows. And I know for a fact that there are people who are affiliated or work with the labor movement who are afraid of speaking out. I'm not talking about people who had experienced the harassment from him. Again, Rick knows these people. I'm just telling you what happened. But I know people who work in organizations, right, that are connected to the labor movement, who might not even know who this guy is, who are afraid of speaking out publicly on Twitter or on Facebook because they're worried about retributions if they do. Rick rightfully called this a which side are you on moment for Pennsylvania labor movement. He says workers in Pennsylvania are in a classic which side are you on moment. Do we accept the status quo of failed leadership with a baggage of abusive behavior toward our sister members? Or do we organize and demand better? Apparently today, the executive council of the PA AFL-CIO is having an emergency meeting about their newly elected leader. And so 2 things are going to happen at that meeting, according to Rick. He says they're either going to, 1, fire Snyder, hashtag fire Snyder, or they're going to get together to try to get their story straight and handle this with a PR offensive. I'm telling you, anybody who does labor research, any labor reporter that's out there needs to be following this like freaking, what do they say? I can't think of a metaphor. Needs to be on this. Because we are going to watch what happens. The choices that are being made today about whether or not they allow this guy to move forward and how they come out and deal with this is going to define what happens in the Pennsylvania labor movement, at least those unions that are under the PA AFL-CIO tent. Now remember, not too long ago, some unions broke away from the AFL-CIO because they didn't like the way they're dealing with organizing. SCIU is one of them. SCIU is one of the fastest growing unions in the country right now. And SCIU is not part of the PA AFL-CIO, for example. But those folks who were at that convention, they know. Rick also tweeted, said, I am getting ready for the onslaught of attacks from people who don't know better. They believe they are defending an honorable leader in a newly elected PA AFL-CIO. Don't be fooled by their attacks on me. This is not about me. It is about the women he abused. I saw some of these attacks start to pop up on Rick's feed last night. And I tweeted out, said like, hey, look, let's be crystal clear. Calling out unions and labor leaders for systemic sexism and abusive behavior is not anti-labor. Calling them out is a precondition to rebuild the labor movement as a force for equity, justice, and democracy. Get it straight. The fact is, look, Rick said this on his show last night, which the link is in there. And here's I'll give you the rough breakdown. Rick was basically saying when he had somebody come to him and told him about his abusive behavior, when he witnessed Snyder demeaning someone publicly and yelling at them and bullying them, he went to the big boss. He went to him and said, this has got to stop. You've got to control him. You can't let this happen. And Rick was given assurances. It's going to be dealt with. And this is what Rick said on the show last night. He said that he made a deal. He basically said to him, look, you're telling me I'm going to trust you to take care of this. And Rick was assured that there will never be a day when that guy becomes a president of the PA AFL-CIO. And Rick said, okay, I'm going to trust you to do the right thing here. I'll let you handle it, and I won't go public with this now. But if he ever does, just know. Well, as soon as it happened, as soon as Frank Snyder was elected, Rick followed through on what he said he would do, like he always does. On the show last night, and his show last night, he also goes out and he explains and he apologizes, and he is beating himself up right now for not going forward sooner. And he says he should have. But he believed it. And now some of those very same people, according to what he said last night, some of those very same people who promised him that this would never happen are pretending they don't know. And I cannot tell you how many times I've been in situations like this, not with these people, but situations like this, that's what these folks do. They'll sit there and they'll be like, I don't know what wait, this is the first I'm hearing of it, when you know that's not true. In the wake of the Me Too movement, right, in the wake of what has happened, right, we see time and time again, it's the same exact pattern. This is not new. Unions, just like any other institution, are institutions of people. They're embedded in a patriarchal, racist country. And unless you work actively against those things, you make it possible for your own institutions to become tainted by and defined by those things. We need a labor movement worthy of the name. So like I said, I put the link in the show. I really encourage people to go out and kind of follow Rick Smith. If you have not already, go at the Rick Smith Show. Follow what's going on there and pay attention to this story. All my labor brothers and sisters out there. Why does this matter to me per se? I am a union member. As I've been known to say on multiple times, I bleed union. I have believed in what the working class can do when it organizes for itself on its own interests. When we work together. And I was part of a team that helped design a strike from the ground up and felt that solidarity. And it was an exhausting and beautiful moment. And I know it is incredibly difficult to hold on to that. It didn't even take long, even after our strike, for like just petty nonsense to just kind of like start to break down those bonds of solidarity. They're so fragile. And look, I mean, my union, ABSCUF, is not a member of the PA AFL-CIO, but I can tell you one thing. I'll tell you this one story. I'll tell you two stories about Frank Snyder. What I know about him. I had been at in part at the PA Progressive Summit, right? That used to be held in Harrisburg. I'd hear people make comments about Frank Snyder, right? No one ever told me details, right? Except what I heard from Rick, what Rick had told me. But just you'd hear people say, and they all kind of like roll their eyes or whatever like this, right? So you know there's something going on, but whatever. I don't know, right? And it's kind of like, you know, I'm not one who likes to like repeat, you know, hearsay from like 3 steps removed. I find that toxic. But there were people who were there on the front lines working with that, who were clearly reacting and saying things in a way that suggested that they know something, right? What it was, I wasn't sure, but it was always kind of this kind of stuff, right? And I remember he, at one of our union's legislative assembly, he was invited to speak as a keynote speaker as part of a dinner. And I was sitting with one of the ABSCUF staff members. And, you know, she was a younger staff member. She's not there anymore. And she was great. She was awesome. Right. And we're sitting at the same table and we get talking, and she says, oh God, it's so great that he's here. I'm so glad we were able to get him to here. And I was like, I guess, I don't know if he's really one we want there. And I kind of caught myself, and she's like, what? Why? And I'm like, again, not wanting to repeat rumors 3, 4 like deep. All I said to her was something along the lines of, look, I just heard people who are deeply uncomfortable with him as a leader in the PA-AFL-CIO, that he's doing more damage than otherwise. She says, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't, look, I really don't know details, but I know enough people that I trust that are really not happy with this guy. I said, just be careful. That's all I said to her. Right. And then that was kind of the end of the conversation. That sticks in my brain. The second time, and I had no idea, like, you know, again, who he is as a person. I've never really been around the guy other than kind of like very brief interactions at some of these functions, right? Where I'm just kind of walking by him or something like this. I'm not a big schmoozer. I'm not good with that anyways, but whatever. The second time I saw him, or maybe I'm flipping the order. Maybe the other one came first. We had when Governor Corbett was proposing a 50% cut. Former Governor Corbett was proposing a 50% cut to the state system of higher education. We went to the Capitol numerous times for rallies, for protests, for kind of like for lobbying, kind of against this, right? To organize against these cuts, right? That was happening at the same time. If you remember, this is 2011. This is right before we launched Raging Chicken, right? And this is one of the reasons why I launched Raging Chicken, is that the folks in the labor movement and students and community members and farmers had gone in and occupied the state capitol in response to Governor Walker's, you know, anti-union, anti-people moves that he was making. And like I've said on this show 1,001 times, we saw that these moves were coming closer to here, and we saw the same kind of proposals coming from Governor Corbett's office. And there was this labor rally at the Capitol, which is like, it's like there was rallies, huge rallies and occupations of the Capitol in Wisconsin, and then in Ohio, and we saw in Indiana. It was happening, and the Pennsylvania labor movement was coming together for this. And I was on the steps, right? We're kind of walking in because everyone was on the steps. You had this rally, this one part of the rally, and everyone starts to walk up the steps and converge on the Capitol. We're going in. And we're going in to stay. That was kind of what I kept on hearing, right? And so I'm walking up there, and I'm like, you know, I can't remember who I was with at the time. We walk up, and we kind of come around this corner looking for these doors to go in, what doors are kind of open to go in. And we come around this little area by a door, and there's Frank Snyder, like standing up on there, kind of all these cameras around him, right? And he gives this like impassioned speech that this is our house, the people's house, and blah, 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 right? And people are excited, right? People are, yes, that's right. Finally, we're standing up for ourselves. We're going to go in, right? And people are cheering, right? And then he kind of concludes his prepared remarks. The cameras go off and the media turns away and starts to walk away. And everyone there is ready to go in. They're like, yes, let's go in. And he stops them. He says, what are you doing? No, we're not going in. No, we're not going in. What are you doing? No, move back. And I'm sitting there and I'm dumbfounded. I look at people around me, and these are like steel workers. I think there were mine workers that were kind of in this group. They were kind of like asking me, they were kind of like looking at each other like, but like kind of like, but you just said, we're here. But for him, it was a media moment. It was about him. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that experience of being like, whoa. And having all these people around me just kind of looking at him in disbelief and looking at each other like, wait a minute, did I misunderstand something here? And they're all like, I don't know. Those are my two memories. So, anyways, follow Rick Smith at The Rick Smith Show on Twitter. Find out what's going on. Follow this story closely. I'm telling you that eyes need to be on this. Because, look, I can tell you this, is that Rick is already being threatened, right, to have money pulled out of his show because most of his support comes from organized labor. And it is a moment when we're going to see which side people are on. So, having said that. All right, I'm going to take another quick break and collect myself a little bit, and then we'll come back with a quick closeout for the day. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. We'll be back right after this message.
Where are all my people? Where are all my people? Where are all my people? Where are all my people?
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's this week's Last Call, where we talk about whatever. So I wanted to just close out today's it's a dungeon run. Close out today's show with a heartfelt thanks to the folks who make the dungeon run. The dungeon run is, it's one of these, online tabletop play. Let me just hold on a second. Here we go. So I want to get to their official website. There we go. Come on. Take me there. Okay. So the dungeon run, it's a, they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it's one of these streaming things. You might have heard of Critical Role. Critical Role's gotten kind of like a ton of, accolades as kind of putting this stuff on the map. And it's, especially during COVID, people playing Dungeons and Dragons in there. And a lot of times they're, done by voice actors. That was true with Critical Role. And that was also true with the dungeon run. The dungeon run is the story that I've told on the show before is that, I was just starting to kind of getting back into Dungeons and Dragons. And I thought, during COVID, I was like, you know what, I should just start learning how to dungeon master, to DM, so I could do some campaigns for my kids so we can do this together and things like this. And they started becoming interested in this stuff. And so I thought, okay, this is a perfect time. And I was home last summer and in August, and my brother Ryan was there, and he was like, and I was telling him about this, and he was saying that, oh yeah, I actually just ran a campaign with my friends, or, we've just been doing this. I'm like, that's cool. And then I said, yeah, I said, I've been trying to, learn how to do this by some of these online shows and stuff. Like, and he's like, I asked him, did you know Critical Role? And he's like, yeah. He said, Critical Role's okay. He said, I really prefer the dungeon run. I'm like, oh, I don't know this. And he's like, yeah. He's like, the storytelling is just phenomenal. I just, that's what I like. I said, oh, okay, I'll give it a shot. I said, what is it called? Look it up. I come back home. And then I've got about like 2.5 weeks before my semester. It's like the final crunch time. You're preparing all the final materials and all this kind of stuff. I was very, very not in a good space about going back to work at Kutztown for a variety of reasons. Not, the least of which was COVID and the way that COVID has been handled at my university, but a bunch of other reasons. And so I started watching this while I was doing preparations. And it's like, again, I don't think I could have just watched it for this because each show was like 3 hours long, right? So, but I'm doing all this work, all this prep work and stuff. So I would have it on in the background. I just got totally hooked on the story. And it really is. It's like, one of the differences between this show and a bunch of the other ones that foreground, say Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, is that they really pitch this as kind of like a PG, maybe PG-13 show, right? So, what you get in some of the other shows, it's kind of like, borderline, where dropping the F-bomb every other minute is still a cool thing to do. So they do, it's like stuff like that, or it becomes kind of like super sexualized and things like this. And that's just not my thing, right? Just like, I'm interested in the story and, the arc and stuff. And that's what they did. And Jeff Kanata, who I now have learned is like a legend in kind of voice acting and kind of in the kind of geekdom world through his podcasts and stuff. He put together this world of Ein that was just incredible. And the stories that they told were incredible. And, this is also happening in the wake of when they first started. It was before COVID, right? It was before the COVID lockdown. And so they were doing this campaign as we saw the murder of George Floyd, as we saw the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, as we saw this Republican backlash against all this extremists. And they never, well, I shouldn't say they never did, but it wasn't like they would come on the show and foreground that stuff and talk about that for a while, but it made it into the story. Both for the voice actors who played the characters and for the Dungeon Master, they built it into the story about how we treat each other. It had a strongest undercurrent of anti-racism, right? About empathy, about love, and it was it was incredible. And it was just a great story, not just about that stuff, but also just the story itself was like, whoa. I mean, there were times I walked away from that and I'm just like, whoa, that was a crazy story, right? I mean, you ever read a book and you kind of, you have these moments of amazement where your mind is still filled with the scenes that you were just reading about because you just kind of like went unexpected twists and stuff. That's what like the show was like. So anyways, for whatever reason, I really connected with the show and I thought that was, it got me through personally, right? That kind of hump, right? Where I was feeling really as cynical as I felt in recent memory. Okay. And I felt like the show helped me build back some of that hope. And it might sound completely cheesy. It might sound completely, I don't know, childish, if you will, but nonetheless it did. And it meant a lot to me. Right. And then as I kind of caught up on these episodes, because they just concluded with like episode 115 this past week. So it was 115 episodes at about 3 to 4 hours an episode. You could do the math. I'm ashamed to do so, right? Because I went through the entire season since August. I caught up before Christmas, right? So, but it was something special for me, and it meant a lot. And I'm not one that gets wrapped into kind of celebrity culture and things like this. It just kind of tends to really like I just go over my head or just kind of just whatever annoy me. But if I felt like this here, the other part of it was that the fans of the show, they started the Discord server for this, right? And they built up this entire community around the show that I have not seen in online communities, right? Where people were. It wasn't just about like ranting about bad stuff. It wasn't just kind of like, it wasn't people attacking each other and stuff, but it was people looking to do cool things and sharing stuff and helping each other out. It was, I don't want to paint too rosy a brush here, but it was like, it really was a beautiful thing. And then Jeff Kanata kind of started to build that community into the storyline. It was just crazy. It was crazy cool. It was just crazy cool. So anyways, they just concluded their first campaign was called the Heroes of Bingle. That was the group that was playing in that the group of characters, the party that was running the show. As Heroes of Bingos, that just came to a conclusion on Wednesday night, and I thank them for all the work that they've done and for what they gave. It's really impressive. Now, having said that, I got to also make sure that the Dungeon Run as an organization, as a space for this kind of like collaborative storytelling with that same kind of ethos at its core, has not gone away. They just concluded this campaign. They started up another campaign a couple. Wait, let's see. It was when? I don't know, maybe about a month ago, I want to say. It was a new campaign that they're saying, I'm looking to see if I have I can't remember, I can't think of the name. Anyways, but they started up a new campaign. They just had the first kind of introductory episode, and now they are going to, that's going to be kind of coming up. And then they're going to have two of the characters who played on the show are now going to co-DM, which they were like, I don't know if anybody's seen anybody do this before, but they're going to co-DM and they're going to start a new campaign over the summer. So that's all going on. So thank you. Shout out to the Dungeon Run. I appreciate everything you all did and continue to do. And I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to thank them, say, in this kind of public way. So anyways, and now it's my time to thank all of you. Thank you for kind of supporting the show. For those of you who've been with us since, from 2011, thank you for supporting the show. If you're kind of a new member, a new patron, and thank you if you tweet out our stuff, you share our stuff, you shoot me emails, just kind of see what's going on, you pass me information, and generally kind of doing the hard work on the ground, right? I mean, I'm behind this mic. This is kind of like one of the kind of venues that I hope to kind of amplify the amazing organizing that is happening on the ground. I mean, there are incredible organizers out there that I'm in awe of, and I hope that I can learn some things from them moving forward. But I want to thank all of you for help supporting the show, and I hope that we're going to continue to build on this. We're going to continue to build on this, and we're going to, for those of you who are located in Bucks County, we're going to defend this county. We're going to build it up, and we're going to make it something that it can be, and not cede ground to the extremists. So anyways, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Thank you all for tuning in today. Appreciate the time, appreciate all the work that you're doing, appreciate your thoughts, your concerns, your hopes and dreams. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. I am out of here. We'll see you on Monday for Out to Coop Live with David Becker, and we'll be back again next Friday with maybe a special guest. All right, we'll see you then. I'm out of here. See ya!